G'day, and welcome to Say It With Guitars. I'm your host, Pete Cornelius. Each episode, I'll be digging deep and getting to hang with some of Australia's finest guitar pickers, songwriters, producers, collectors, and makers. I look forward to bringing you these fun conversations, and I hope you enjoy Say It With Guitars.
G'day there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the pod. Hope you enjoyed our chat with Chris Finnan, our last episode. He's got some great stories and definitely a really cool cat. A character for sure. So yeah, got a busy weekend ahead of us, folks. We've got the Beatles show all around Tassie with fellow podcast guest Jed Pickett. He's the other guitar player I'll be sharing duties with, along with Tom Wolfe, Scott Target, Bo Thomas, and some great horn players, and there's a few guests joining us too, folks, so hopefully we can catch up with a few of you guys around the traps this weekend. And then the following weekend we're doing another Lucinda Williams show down in Bicheno for the Food and Wine Festival. So yeah, plenty of little gigs going on. So today's guest, folks, John Castle. He's a multi-instrumentalist and producer, engineer, a lovely fella, and we get into the weeds of some great musical production tips and just industry stuff, which I think we don't really talk about enough. So yeah, it's great of him to share this info with us here today. So yeah, enjoy the chat, folks, and we'll catch you later. Before we crack into today's show, I'd love to shout out to our Season 4 sponsors, Tarrant Guitars and Top Shelf Guitars, the custom workshop of award-winning luthier Billy Tarrant on the northwest coast of Tasmania uses locally and internationally sourced solid tone woods to create a wide range of custom guitars, including acoustic, electric, lap steel guitars and specialty instruments, showcasing his passion for superior tone and structural integrity. Tassie's one-stop custom workshop for custom-made guitars, all guitar repairs and services. Check out tarrantguitars.net.au. Top Shelf Instruments specialises in used and vintage guitars, pedals and amps, shipping worldwide from Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. We love helping players land exceptional instruments for manageable dollars, and guitars from Japan hold a special place in our hearts. New old guitars hit the website almost daily, so head on over to the website for this week's weird and wonderful offerings, topshelfinstruments.com.au. All right,
go.
All right, I'd like to welcome to today's chat on Say It With Guitars, John Castle.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting us into your beautiful space.
That's all right. Thank you. It's nice to show someone around, actually.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it's great. A lot of cool toys hanging up on the wall, and the mic locker, and all these interesting, quirky, colourful instruments. When I say colourful, like the tones.
The characterful,
character.
Yeah. There's actually not enough colour in these. There's too many natural...
There's a lot of wood.
I know. It wasn't by design.
It's like we're in Scandinavia or something.
yeah. It's a real, Scandi vibe. I think I was mentioning to you before that... Yeah, I guess I just collect guitars on, well, sometimes if they look cool, to be honest, and they pique my interest, I think, but really on just if they're just different. I'm not a guitarist in the way that, I've always played guitar since I was a kid, and Dad was a guitarist as well, but I'm in the studio, I'm more interested in, I've got a Strat, I've got a Tally, I've got a sort of a humbucking style of guitar, 335 or something like that, which all do their jobs, but I think I'm much more interested in a guitar that it doesn't necessarily shout out one of the three kind of thing. So, some of the old 60s ones, there's an amazing Star guitar here that I think, I don't know the model numbers, I'm sorry, but like I said, I think Ibanez used to make it.
Yeah, it's even Guitone.
Yeah, Guitone, exactly. Yeah, and those microphones, I mean, I've found over the years, the more microphonic the pickups are, the crazier they sound. You can talk into those things, at a medium gain. And they just sound amazing. They sound like, to me, they with the chorus pedal on, it's like Cure records and stuff. And I'm not saying the Cure ever used those, but it's got some sort of hyper sound to it already. And there's lots of examples of that. I think I was just showing you before the some of the old acoustics, which, just weird ones that would have been sold at Kmart, essentially, or, Sears in the States, I guess, all those sorts of guitars, those mail order sort of things.
Yep.
And they just sound amazing. I think they're just plywood glued together, and they sound like that. But in a place where I want to create something other than, say, the sound of a Maton or the sound of a new stringed acoustic, which also has its place, of course. That's right. They can really give you a sense of sort of, those guitars can create an emotion themselves, which is what I'm more interested in, I guess.
Perfect. And you sort of play differently too. Like if you're responding to the sound of an instrument or to the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it plays, it's going to bring out something different to what a Telly or a Strat or
the guitar that you're really used to playing. I mean, I think getting especially singer-songwriters who maybe have sat with a particular guitar for a long time, they get very used to sort of picking it up, doing the same sort of licks maybe on it, or playing the sort of same way. I love forcing. That's a harsh word. Encouraging the clients to use something that's just weirder, older. Your fingers are not going to be as comfortable on them. Some of these, have got strings from probably 1985 at this point, and it just forces you in a different way of playing stuff, and I think that can be really interesting in some songs, and helps out.
I agree, absolutely, and it takes out a bit of that kind of subconscious noodling.
Yes, exactly.
Like if you have to think about what you're playing, like because the guitar's a bit abstract or the action's a bit funky. Yeah. You actually have to really put the intention.
Yes, intention is exactly right, and really think about what you're playing and where your fingers are going. Yeah. And it takes you out of that comfort zone, which I think is great. Yeah. Again, it's not like it's not like jumping off a cliff or something with a thing, but I think it just gives you a little bit of change in what you do, which is cool, because we all get stuck in our own noodling shop licks, whatever you want to call them. I had one that it's sort of like having slight physical Tourette's in a way, where I would just pick up a guitar and play this weird thing I'd always play. And I remember just sitting, like having an earworm maybe that you can't get rid of. And I just sat one night and I recorded it, doubled it up, put some drums, bass, guitars, keys, did this whole little production on it, and it's actually solved my issue of I'll never play it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Just got it out of your system.
You got it out of my system. I still think with earworms, if I go and actually listen to the song that is earworming me, it often gets rid of it for me. Well, that's one of my weird little quirks anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how that works.
Something about it changed in my mind, and I sort of exercised it or something out of my system.
Well, that makes sense. It's like when you've got a song in your head and you record it and you get it out, like it frees that part of your brain.
Yes.
It's like that little section has dissolved and there's space for more information.
Yeah, unfortunately it will be soon filled up by something else pretty quickly, no doubt, with my brain. But but I think all of those guitars, they've always made a big difference to me. I mean, I think when I was first buying bits and pieces, I mean, I've been buying bits and pieces all through the years or whatever, but back in Melbourne when I was there was still some sort of junk shops at the time, which most of those things have gone now, really. I think this is like...
The Swappy's still going strong,
The Swappy's, great, but even like much lower level than that, like real proper junk shops, and there was a place called Dave's Boutique in Smith Street in Fitzroy that I drive past all the time, and he often just had these ridiculous guitars on the wall, and I would just go and buy everything, but they were $100. They weren't, he didn't have $700 on them or $800. They would just, and especially in the studio, I've always sought out any sort of toys in inverted commas, anything that I can find to bring some interest to the session at some point, you know. And I don't think I've ever regretted really buying an instrument in my life at this point.
Well, that's a pretty good thing. Most people, I'm sure, would have some purchase regrets. So that's so that's good.
I think. Well, I'm not. I guess I'm not talking $3,000 spends, or I'm talking quite. Which as I think we alluded, or we were talking about before a little bit before we started the podcast, that I think that I don't have to think about a guitar when I buy it to go out on the road with, or I don't have to think how it's going to travel, or I mean, most of these, you can't even get cases for these guitars. They're so weird, so I can just hang them on the wall, pick them up. I can tune them per chorus if I need to, if they're a bit, wonky and stuff. So that's really a good thing that I don't have to think about, I guess. Same with drums and all the other instruments actually too. A lot of the drums I use in the studio, and a lot of drummers around the world always, have a great collection of kind of weird old stuff, but
Yeah.
you can't take them out on the road. They just die.
Just fall to bits.
Yeah.
All the hardware.
But they sound fantastic in the studio.
Yeah.
And it's a different environment.
Yeah.
You know, in the studio, it's like the softer you play, often with a lot of instruments, the more power you're going to get out, the more sort of the tone you're going to get out of the instrument, you know?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's a great approach. And you can tell too, I was listening to some early bamboos on the way up here today just to sort of refresh my palate because
Sure.
I used to listen to that Step It Up album like all the
Oh,
time.
yeah, that's a great record. Yeah,
When
yeah.
it first
yeah.
came out, like I was just amazed. It's like, wow, this reminds me of so much of the great music that came out of America in that late 60s, early 70s period.
Yeah.
And it had that, not only the tone, but the essence of the playing and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
And I was listening to that today to kind of just like get back in the zone. And yeah, you can hear the players put in their own input, like their own stamp on everything, but you can hear how the sound actually plays a massive part of that as well. It's not just like the band went into a studio, press record, left with the mixes that day. It's like you've gone in and you're approaching it as a whole unit, not just like the band. It's like, how does the guitar sound? Like, how does it fit within the context? Like, how does that hi-hat sound? Like how does everything sound? So I don't know, like maybe give us a little rundown on how you guys approached that kind of stuff. Like,
absolutely. I think actually I'll say too, I think it's the 25th anniversary of that, not of that record, but of the first Bamboos release.
Yeah, right.
So we're doing, we're going. Was it 2000? I think Eel Oil was the first release we had, which was, I did that back with Lance, my musical brother and you know, wonderful friend, and musical collaborator for that long actually. I mean, that's when we sort of first met. But I think originally Lance, who runs the Bamboos, writes all the songs, that stuff, does that, has been the creator of that whole thing. Came to me back in the day. I was doing a lot of bass gigs and starting the studio. The studio was very basic at the time. I had a little 4-track reel-to-reel and stuff. I started doing some jazz recordings in my little back shed at my parents' house, and sort of word had got around a little bit just within the little Melbourne scene that this. Well, I was sort of a kid, I guess, at that point. I was 20-something maybe, or 20, or whatever. Was sort of doing recording jazz stuff and maybe being a bit more sensitive to the sound of stuff. I think some of the studios the jazz guys were going to were sort of, had a lot of guys who did a lot of rock and roll stuff and maybe just didn't listen to a lot of, you know, jazz stuff. And I grew up with that from Dad being a jazz musician and stuff. So I think I had sort of an idea of what it maybe should sound like a little bit. Not that I had all the gear to do it, but I could at least get a blend, get a mix of stuff that maybe was a bit more sensitive than some of the other guys could. So that went around, and I mean, Lance was one of the guys who came in with, I can't remember which act he had at the time, but and I remember him approaching me with the article from the Dap Kings guys about the Shitty Is Pretty article, which is all about the idea of sort of, you know, lo-fying the whole sound and creating a vibe with that and stuff. So he said, is this something that you could perhaps work with me on? Because I've got some ideas that I want to start this, you know, quartet or whatever. And I said, yeah, sure. And because I was always collecting weird stuff back then anyway. You know, I was always interested in just weird old stuff, and I'd go to markets and just find old mics or anything I could find that I could run something through to make it interesting, you know. So then very intentionally we set about trying to create the idea that, you know, these records were something you might be able to find in a record store one day and sort of not, and you were never kind of sure when it was really recorded or something, you know. That was the whole point. Or sorry, it was recorded back then at some point. So, and I had a whole lot of instruments and bits and bobs and drums and stuff, and the tape machine obviously the tape machine actually was a big deal for us because we did use as an old trick that I don't think that many people. Well, I discovered it is in my time. You know, I'm sure lots of other people were doing it. I stumbled upon on the TAC 3440 tape machine. If we're getting too nerdy, just let me know. It had playback heads and it had sync heads, and the sync heads were sort of like of a lesser quality, but they're what you just monitor to while you were overdubbing something on the tape. But if you actually just played back the tape through the sync heads, you had this incredibly limited EQ sort of frequency range coming back out at you. And and also if you push the tape, you also had the tape compression and the little bit of distortion in there as well.
Yep.
So by the combination of that and learning how much to push it and do all that sort of stuff, we sort of came up with that, kind of created that sound in a way.
Yeah. Were you summing a lot of stuff through the board?
Look, we did some recordings to the 3/440 in the early days, like actually literally live recorded. And then as it went along, I had a system called Marys. Anyway, blah, blah, that's boring because no one knows what it is now. But it was a great system, but I was basically recording to computer. I had ADATs and all this stuff in the old days. But then we'd run it back. I think we ended up running mixers back through the 3/440 because once the band got bigger and it just became too complicated in the end, it was just a massive, and we didn't have much time. All of these things, happened very quickly. So we weren't there for weeks or anything. I mean, Lance and I have done a whole series of records called Rare Groove Spectrum and Black Feeling records. There's 1, 2, 3 volumes. It's hard because it's not really labelled on Spotify, but they're incredible records that we did all the records in 4 days, and that's like horns, the full rhythm sections, all the stuff. And we sort of did that, and we continued to do that in the last.
Like writing as well, or
no? These are like it's not a mixtape, but it's like a whole lot of songs that Lance had found. He's an avid record collector and a highly knowledgeable, person of all sorts of musical styles. But he'd find songs that maybe were really rare in his collection, and we'd sort of do redos of them with a similar idea to the Bamboos. Sort of again like. We'd create these compilation records like someone had discovered them somewhere, and put them on, and we actually had different band names for everything.
Cool.
So I think that they're a great listen if you're into that sort of thing. But I guess as the Bamboos progressed, we changed the way we did the production, and Lance was interested in changing some ideas. But back in Step It Up days, it was definitely very intentional and. Just stop me if I'm going on too long, but I think what you were mentioning about all the instruments and say the hi-hats and the guitars and the place, I mean, all of that was very intentional because I had heard some recordings where someone went in and maybe put some distortion and tape slap echo and stuff, but hadn't really thought that maybe they'd use some new hi-hats, thick sticks, when I say the wrong snare, just for that, if you're going for that time, you need to understand a little bit how the drummers even played. I mean, people have changed their styles over the years, Drum skins have, well, no, not actually drum skins, but I mean, they're using lighter skins a lot of the time. A lot of the newer skins are quite heavy for certain reasons, and a lot of the drums were a lot thinner shelled. So and a lot of the hi-hats were a lot thinner. So if you sort of use all modern instruments and sort of then distort it all and put the EQ, stuff on it, you can sort of get away with it, but something's missing to me. It is. So all of those things we tried to use sort of date-specific instruments in a way, without going too museum on it,
Yeah. That's great. And it was just like trial and error, or were you like digging through photos and footage?
No.
Of like mic placements?
No. I didn't really know. We never did any of that sort of thing. To me, it was... I just relied on hearing the tracks and going, okay, that's what we...
So song by song kind of was all like a fresh take?
No, we didn't have time for that because we were basically... The band was just set up in the room and we just do it. So we did all do it live. And I think, we might have changed snare drums on a couple of tracks, but apart from that, we didn't have time for mucking around. There was no like mic placement strings up in the air. Like it was just you had to go kind of thing, because we just didn't have time. It was budgets, it was all that sort of stuff. So, which was super cool. But
it's great for performance too, because if the band are like hitting their straps like at a certain level, you might as well just keep the tape rolling, so to speak, and just like and deal with stuff like that. And how much were you committing to a lot of that harmonic distortion and and delays and stuff, or was a lot of that stuff done in the mix?
I think if you play back the multi-track, I can't remember exactly what we did on Step It Up, but it was all... I probably would have had just a pretty basic setup all around. It would have just been bass DI, maybe 4 mics on the kit or something. Because as I said, some of them we did do to tape, so that would be like... some of the stuff would have been summed through a little board that I had, through a little mixing desk that I had. Otherwise, it would have just been multi-tracked down pretty simply, really. I wasn't going like 12 mics on the kit and then sort of deciding and stuff. So it was pretty... And really, the sound in the room was what we were getting back. Like, I think if you were to pull that up now and I gave you the multi-tracks, you'd instantly recognise the sound. And the tape sync head thing I was talking about definitely gave it some crunch. But... the inherent sound would have been very similar. You know, there wasn't a lot of heavy processing on those records, really.
Yeah,
actually,
it sounds pretty natural and raw. And like I said, you can just hear the players just do their thing, and you can tell that they're playing to a brief as well, in a way. Like, try and sound like you've just made it, you know, you're in the late 60s, early 70s.
And I think, see, a lot of the guys too, from the Bamboos over the years, and there's been various players and stuff, but a lot of them had, it's sort of a jazz background kind of situation, which if you go back then, I'm not a you know, a historian of this as well, but I mean, most of the players coming into the funk scene from the James Brown bands, from all that sort of stuff, they were jazz guys, you know, so they had these hands that were just beautifully light and nimble and incredibly...
And dynamic.
Yeah, dynamics and like technical ability, and they could play soft and make it the funkiest thing you've ever heard, or play it loud and make it the funkiest thing you've ever heard, you know, they had such control. So I think having the musicians... Yeah, because I mean, with all the sounds we had, if you didn't have the musicians, it'd sound terrible. You know, so it's like, given that we had all these incredible players in Melbourne at the time, and who were really into the idea as well and enthusiastic about it, that really, you know,
because that Daptones thing just took off at that period.
Really did.
You know, so I think it was a great move to.
Lance has always been very, very good at like understanding what's happening around him and in the scene, and he's always got, you know. He's just, he's very knowledgeable. He always he has a really good sense of what's happening around the place. And, you know, he used to DJ a lot, you know, he used to get into clubs and stuff. And his idea too was always to get these tunes into clubs. Like, it wasn't about Triple J, or it wasn't about, it was a real DJ focused kind of thing, and sort of creating like mixtapes out of stuff, or like creating songs that DJs could play. And I mean, there was always parts where we'd have outros and stuff where DJs could then, you know, spin it for longer and then, you know, bring in stuff, remix stuff in underneath and stuff. So there was a lot of intention in stuff he did at the time, you know, because he also knew where the marketplace was probably, but also just had a beautifully creative mind in that way too, you know, and understood that genre so well.
So were there click tracks involved to try and sync up, like get BPMs?
Oh
nice and tight?
I don't, you know what?
Not on all of it, obviously, but...
We may have.
Progressed?
I don't know if it was that. I don't know. I reckon we did. I think we did use a lot of click tracks probably. I think in the end it was just easier for us because we had so little time to do stuff. If we needed to drop stuff in, it was probably easy. I mean, I don't think we did this that much, but it was kind of either that was a take or not. But there might have been a couple of times where we dropped in a chorus. I don't know. I can barely remember. But but I'm pretty sure we probably would have, to be honest. I've never really had a problem with click tracks, and I know that there is a lot of discussion maybe about whether they're good or whether they take away from the thing. I think it depends on what musicians you have, what sort of stuff you're trying to do, and how you'd like to post-process afterwards. Because as much as it's a romantic idea of not having clicks maybe,
I can save so much time.
Yeah, you can, and not all movement is good to me. You know, I'm happy to have a click track, and I think, you know, often if I'm recording now, like I'll click track everything, but I'll put some guitars down, I'll put a drum part down. But once that's done, we kind of lose the click track and just play to whatever's there then. So I'm not trying to grid everything. Certainly there's lots of tunes that I've gridded all over the place. But you can definitely create a great feel with a click track too, I think.
So is that kind of like those early days of recording out of your folks' sort of makeshift studio? Was it kind of like the start of this audio sounds, or not soundscape, but like sound journey, like, or is it like to sort of music take more of a not music, like performing music?
Look, that was all happening concurrently, basically. I mean, I remember being in maths class in, I don't know, maybe year 9, year 10 or something. I mean, I started playing clarinet when I was in year 6 or something, like when I was 12 years old or something. So I'd already sort of done that little thing. I picked up a bass in about year 8 probably. When I was about 15 or something. And then at the same time, I'd kind of always started dreaming about studios. I used to go to like it was pre-internet, I guess, but get like mix magazines and stuff and look through all that. So I was lusting after all that kind of idea of stuff. And I was, you know, I was sketching. Mum and Dad had an old shed down the back, which used to have like a table tennis table in it, and just very basic sort of thing, you know, classic Australian back suburban shed. And so I'd started fantasizing about kind of doing that. So I remember I had little drawings of like layouts and stuff like that, you know, so I was pretty obsessive, you know, I was mucking around with Dad's 4-track and like the piano and stuff when I was quite young. And he'd actually brought a couple of big bands into the house and recorded them at a couple of periods of my life. And I met a lot of his band friends and drummers and stuff who were lovely to me when I was a little kid.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I had a little, you know, I'd seen it. I'd seen this, what I thought was glorious, you know, before I knew the quagmire that I was entering. No, that's not true. But So I think it all sort of happened concurrently, but I guess once I started playing bass, I got very obsessive about that and just had it strapped on the entire time.
Yep.
You know, always playing,
Yep.
doing stuff, you know, went through all the fusion, weather report stuff, you know, like all of that sort of world, which is a great technical learning sort of curve, you know, to try to go through that stuff and listening into that sort of world, you know.
And just study it like the box you learning like
No,
that as well?
I didn't actually end up doing any of that. I was pretty self-taught. I had a couple of lessons from Jeremy Allsop, who was a wonderful bass player in Melbourne at the time. But that's it, really. I just was sort of self-taught. I've always done that, and it's just suited me. You know, it's not for everybody maybe, but I've been able to sort of be fairly disciplined in learning that stuff, you know. So that was the thing. As soon as I left school, I was into doing gigs straight away, kind of thing. So I just started, and I did end up doing a year at RMIT doing fine arts or a media arts thing. But in the end, I already had my little studio running. I was gigging. It sort of didn't make sense for me to continue that, you know. So I was just off and racing, and that's what I wanted to try to do. From there,
I did the exact same thing. I went to year 11 here at Newstead. To learn more about, you know, all the stuff that you should be learning about, you know, music theory and some electronics, and I was learning about audio, but I was already touring and playing in my band and writing songs and doing all the stuff I wanted to do. I was like, it just got in the way, you know. It did. So I can definitely vouch for that. If you've got a clear idea of what you need and how to get it, and where you need to work on, like your own performance or your own learnings.
If you're happy to be disciplined by yourself, then I think it's really good. I'm always sort of
mentors as well. If you surround yourself with good people, and
yes, I think weirdly, I mean, I'm always reticent to sort of talk about this because it's like everyone's different, and some people really thrive in the kind of uni situation or in teachers or having teachers or whatever. So I think, you know, everyone's just got to find their own way through. You know, I don't think that it's a good idea for everyone to go and do that, because it's very easy for people to lose their way and just feel really kind of isolated and maybe not get a lot done too, you know. So I think it's just, you've really got to find your own way.
And the networks you would create in those environments too would be fantastic.
Exactly, that's the thing. Most of my mates really, I was a slight outlier in that way because I didn't go through the VCA or stuff. So a lot of the guys, all the Bamboos guys, you know, a lot of those guys were at least adjacent to that, from a sort of jazz education. So I sort of feel like
Empire stuff, like all that stuff's all just jazz school, basically.
Absolutely, you know, and I listen to a lot of jazz, but it doesn't mean that I feel like I still feel like I still love listening to jazz because it's not something I would ever feel comfortable. I mean, I've done jazz gigs on bass and stuff, but like I feel almost slightly uncomfortable doing it. You know, as a massive fraud, even though I love it and I will always love listening to it, you know. But that's what keeps it magical for me too, maybe not getting too deep into the weeds with it in some ways, you know. But it's nice to have that harmonic knowledge a little bit, you know, that I did.
I own respect for that time and place and all those players, and to have that knowledge as well to draw upon for fields and for tones and for stuff like that.
Absolutely, and just having that, the wild harmonic knowledge and stuff that is going on, it still sort of breaks my brain, I think. I think, it's interesting. As far as like getting into like the studio production stuff though, I mean, I was playing gigs all through the time. So, you know, the cash in the pocket would come in, pay the rent, maybe try to afford some studio gear over the years, you know, like, and just build kind of over the years. And I think, but a lot of that was sort of engineering, and I had very much, you know, gear lust, like everyone does at that, you know. You know, which I'm sure a lot of people can understand. But it was sort of, I think a major change for me was when I sort of started to be asked to start to sort of produce things, which was sort of back in the day, it was just this, you know, someone would hire you to engineer a session. So, you know, they come in, pay $25 an hour or something, whatever it was. I don't know, 4 hours, we need to get these 3 songs done. It could be for a corporate demo for, you know, that would go on cassette to get gigs. It could be jazz stuff. It could be like some original stuff. But a lot of the time, I hadn't really touched, you know, any of the original kind of music at that time. It was all sort of bands coming in to get demos to get gigs, essentially, which a lot of people I mean, I guess people still do it now. I don't even know. I have no idea. But it was only until like some friends of mine asked me to help them make an EP, and they said they'd sort of like me to produce it, which was something I sort of musically already knew that I was sort of doing sometimes, I guess, maybe suggesting stuff to people without getting in their way, because that's a really important thing to do. But I guess that's where the focus really started to shift, I think, for me, you know. But all the time playing as well, you know, because that's just how I earn the money.
That's right. And I think, I think like for a long time I was very confused as to what a producer did and what their facility was and what does that role mean. And the further you go along that journey, I think the more you understand the relationship between the artist and the engineer, like that someone can do as little as just make someone feel comfortable in that space, or they can really shape the way of the session. And it's such an art form, and everyone has an own approach and take an opinion on it and stuff like that. And I suppose it really depends on the final product as well, where you want that song to fit, whether it wants to be a top 40 banger or it's going to sit in the jazz catalogue or whatever. So I think having that broad knowledge and great human people skills is such a, I think that's
a massive part of it.
Yeah.
And I think there are great producers out there who sometimes lack the people skills and get themselves into trouble, you know, and it's sort of unfortunate, because I think technically they're really able to do incredible work, you know. And I think some artists still sort of put up with that because they do such great stuff, you know. But I think it is so different. I mean, I think not that I was there, but I mean, the 60s, you know, the idea of producer is slightly different to what we kind of talk about now, you know, and there was a lot of kind of guiding the session. It could be a musical arrangement stuff. I mean, go back to the George Martin Beatles thing or whatever. Like, you know, there's so many varied. I mean, nowadays, because the industry's changed a lot, you have to wear a lot of hats in anything you do. I think if you want to sort of try to have some sort of career. So you have to be willing to, you know, some gigs might be engineering gigs, or like I went out on the road a lot with the Bamboos doing front of house and stuff, which was good fun, you know, just another thing that I can do too, to earn money. But I think all of that comes down to people skills, you know.
And managing little things that might pop up, you know, just being able to deal with, personalities, problems, all that stuff is, makes a really good person to work with. You've got to be fun and hang out with. And that's sort of, the hang's a big part of it too, I think.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's a very, I mean, I'll say too, people skills is a massive part of it, obviously, but I think people skills come after you've done the technical work to start with. You know, like it's like anything with any instrument or with any skill set. The time you start to be able to expand or get better at what you do is once you've sort of gotten over that technological hump or that technique hump or whatever you want to call it. I guess that once you're over that little area, which takes a lot of work and a lot of thought, but then hopefully you can start to not have to think about it as much, to access different parts of your mind, to actually access creative parts of your mind. And the technique is something that's, you know, in there, but it's not out the front of your brain all the time.
Perfect.
You know?
I agree.
That's
100%.
a really important part of it, I think, because if there's a technical impediment in the creative process, people get bored, people get frustrated. It sucks the life out of the session, you know? But I think, I think the people skills are massive. There's a lot of subtlety to it, and again, it depends on what sort of music you're making and what people expect out of you at the time. You know, I mean,
And I suppose it comes down to the client or even the budget, or if it's like independent or it's with a label. The intention of the projection of the record or the single or the EP, whatever it is you're working on. Everything steers the ship in a slightly different direction, doesn't it?
Absolutely does. I think I've been through, you know, from the very start, just making, you know, music with some people who had some tunes and we got them to a point. So it was very sort of open and creative. The output was, I mean, at the time when I was first doing it, I mean, getting on the radio seemed like an absolute mystery. We had no idea what that meant, you know. And even in sort of the Fitzroy, Brunswick area that I sort of grew up playing music in, there was a very insular scene where everyone was doing gigs. It was a very like vibrant scene. But you'd sort of hear stories of some band who broke out and got some play on Triple J and suddenly did a tour of the East Coast. And that seemed like they were basically U2 at that point. You know what I mean? Like to us, because our world was very much in that insular kind of networking of just playing gigs. You know, we do 5 nights a week or whatever, party Sunday, Mondays,
Yep.
and sort of start up again. Christmas was busy because of corporate stuff or blah, 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 or jazz gigs were happening, you know. So
wedding gigs and...
Yeah, but it was only I guess until I did a record with a girl called Megan Washington, and that was one of those things where just actually through Ross Irwin, who's a fabulous friend of mine, beautiful trumpet player, arranger, composer, songwriter, you know, plays with the Cannon Empire and Bamboos and stuff.
Right.
She had gotten in contact with him and asked him to help her she was looking at doing sort of some original stuff that she'd written, and I think she was sort of doing a fair bit of jazz stuff at the Gold Coast, Brisbane area kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He approached me and said, look, I've got this artist called Megan. She was interested in helping for Ross to help her out, do some arrangements and come up with a band. So we got some of the boys from the Cat Empire in.
Great.
We did session for a couple of days.
Yep.
He ended up having to go somewhere, and Megan said, to me, look, we didn't know each other, but she said, look, I've got this song. Would you mind if we just tried this on the last day kind of thing? I said, no problems, we'll have a go. You know, we'd gotten to know each other she didn't know who I was before that.
Yep.
But we got along pretty well in the last couple of days, and we made this song called Clementine, which was sort of her little launch. I shouldn't say little, but her launch song, I guess. You know, It was a Triple J on Earth song.
Yep.
From that point, basically, just sort of it weirdly took off, and
Great.
we sort of struck up this friendship and creative sort of friendship from that, and which, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to spend 3 hours talking about this, but anyway, we ended up making this record together. She was signed to Universal. All this stuff happened. I started playing drums in her band, even though I wasn't really a drummer. But me and her had made this record together, and it was an incredible process because I had a lot of respect for her. She's just an amazing songwriter, singer, and it was just a very special creative time because we were just locked in this shed together without anyone else's influence really, and able to make this weird record that I mean, I don't know why it worked, but it did, you know. Like it was quite a weird sounding record really when you think about it. But that's sort of when things started to shift, I guess, from my role, because as soon as, look, if you have any success in the industry, there is suddenly going to be some people around to ask you to either replicate that success or maybe expect you to do something, you know, because you've done one thing. And that's a bit of it really changes the vibe, you know, because it can be very difficult. I mean, it depends on the artists you're working with. Obviously, there are a lot of producers in the world who have done some incredible records, right? That are very famous now. But I would say that another 5 producers could have probably made that record with that band and because I think it's really coming from the songwriting. I absolutely, it's production too, you know, there is no doubt. But the combination of that, it just means that, you know, if the producer's done an incredibly successful record, it doesn't mean you can just go to them and it's going to happen like that. You know?
Exactly.
It's personalities, it's songwriting, it's the zeitgeist of does that song fit in to the world around you at the time? Because even though people don't want to think about this, there are chord progressions that work in certain eras. There are chord progressions that just don't seem to gel in other eras, like in times and stuff. So not that I intentionally do that, but I think I have my ear enough to the ground to understand where things might just sit a song outside of the ability to get onto some sort of play. I'm not talking about super commercial, but just even in an indie alt kind of world, you know? It's all stuff as a producer that you kind of need to be aware of if someone is asking you to do that. You know?
Absolutely. So things kind of took off from that period. So you're starting to play live gigs with Megan. Starting to get phone calls for other sessions and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not like, you know, I had a lot of work on. I was very busy through, you know, I guess that was 2010 when that record came out. We did a great gig at Splendor, which kind of launched her. It just sort of added to the launch at the time. It was a great gig, and she's just so good. I mean, you know, she's just such a great artist. So it was hard not to be sort of infected by her whole, you know, thing. So I did that for quite a few years, you know, again, going on little tours around New York, LA, bits and bobs, South by Southwest, that stuff. Again, not huge stuff overseas, but lots of stuff in Australia, and all the while working on other projects and stuff in the studio a lot. You know, I was doing a bit of stuff. So, you know, of course, then she signed to Universal, then a wonderful A&R guy called Peter Carpin, who signed her, got me to do some bits and bobs, and it's sort of just, you know, then some other little labels get interested in getting you to do some stuff, because it's a weird thing where it doesn't mean I was better than anyone, but there's something about when something goes well, then people just trust you to do another project, you know, and that's why it's really hard for people to climb into this world. If you haven't had, it's almost chicken or the egg. How do you get well known or whatever if you haven't had that success to start with? And it's very frustrating.
It's very frustrating, especially when you see all these young, very talented artists.
Exactly.
who don't seem to make it or crack it or just like ever break through. It's like you guys are so deserving of the world, and you just didn't quite,
No, and unfortunately that it seems to be the reality. I've been through that for many times where I've had artists that I think are just fantastic and for some reason just haven't, and it can be happenstance, it can be luck, it can be labels dropping the ball, it can be all sorts of elements, And I guess as an artist, it's hard not to get a bit bitter about that. But unfortunately, you've either got to pick yourself up and keep going or... I don't know. It's really hard. I hate seeing it.
Yeah. And I suppose as a producer, engineer who also plays, you can sort of get your fix in all the areas as well. You can sort of potentially play some great parts on someone's record and still sort of get your musical, buzz,
whatever,
buzz or hit or whatever.
Yeah.
Still like think, oh, cool! I just bought that new guitar. It's made it on the record. Therefore, it's
paid itself off already. Yeah. I've said that to myself so many times. No, absolutely. I don't. I think I got a little bit miffed of not that I was doing. I wasn't touring like for years and years, but we did enough of it where I think it just wasn't good for me anymore. And there was a lot of drinking. A lot of not destructive drinking or anything, but just it was party time. And also, who can go to bed after you've done a crazy gig? I can't. I have to stay up for a while and just decompress and stuff. So a lot of that stuff. So a lot of lifestyle and stuff. It just got a bit unhealthy for me. And so the studio was a very safe place for me to be in. And maybe have more control over my lifestyle. And life in general, and I've always done like sort of 8-hour days in the studio. I've never, not since 2000, have I ever done a late night session, and neither will I.
Wow.
Ever,
That's great.
I just don't enjoy it, and I'm not convinced that an artist can sit there for 12 hours and be making productive decisions at that point. And I know a lot of people might want to do. I mean, I think it's a real bit of a yesteryear thing. I don't think there's that many. A lot of the younger artists I'm working with now are like, why would you do that? And I go, exactly, why would you do that? But it was sort of, I was on the tail end of that world coming into that, where that was sort of expected from a lot of, if you go and get a job in a studio as an assistant, you'd be there for 14 hours. 14 hours, plus clean up, toilet clean up, all that stuff. So that's no way for anyone to work.
No, that's no. You're not going to capture anything productive after that amount of time.
I don't think so.
I think it's just hangover from all those films and movies you watch about, like the Rolling Stones having all-nighters.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac. There was a lot of drugs involved too. I mean, if you've got all of the drugs in the world, sure, maybe you can do that. But I mean, at some point you're going to pay for that, physically and mentally. And I think it was also maybe how much money was around. It's a different world, and also hiring studios, that was a lot of money. So you're going to maximise your
I think that's what a lot of it was, wasn't it?
Like
make the most of this investment because
it's a big investment, but they had the opportunity to pay that back probably too back then. I mean, now it's a whole. Now you got to be conservative as you can.
Yeah, that's right. No one's selling CDs anymore. Like Spotify is not really paying for much.
I mean,
anymore.
Spotify. Look, I will defend Spotify to a small point. Like it does actually pay. This may be, I don't think it's even that controversial. I mean, you can look at the figures and stuff, but I think, and I'm not trying to, so I'm really not a shill for Spotify. I think Spotify's actually helped a lot of people in a lot of ways. I think the monopoly that Triple J sort of still did have, was a bit much for everyone. And I think Spotify's opened up a few more things. I think it's allowed some artists to maybe have an idea of any hotspots overseas they might be popular in. There's a lot of data now you can collect from those sorts of that information, which I think is good. Yeah.
And it's direct to your audience. You're direct to your people.
Yes.
And if you're popular within a group, that's naturally or organically going to grow, whereas you don't have some DJ playing it and telling you this is great.
Yeah.
It's just this natural reaction. And
there are, and I'm like really, truly, there are problems with the entire industry, and there always has been. And I think every generation has said the same thing. I mean, I remember the guys coming up before me having the same argument about Triple J and not being blah, blah. So, but now there's just so many more bands. It doesn't really matter if it was Spotify or another whatever stream, doesn't matter. You're going to be in this predicament because how And the audience has changed now. I guess you could argue that Spotify's changed the audience, maybe, I don't know, or has the internet, social media changed attention spans? There's a much larger thing at play here. So there's a lot of elements, but like in the old days, I mean, there are so many bands, they can't all have a big piece of the pie. It just mathematically doesn't work. Yeah. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think it's carving out your niche, and if you do have fans, really zeroing in on that and trying to keep them as happy as possible. You know?
I think a lot of those
do you mean other streaming sites? No.
No. I mean, like, say an artist has, it's not a possible campaign, but it's like a Patreon.
Oh, yes.
Patreon.
Yep.
So an artist will have bonus content of either behind the scenes or creating of videos or like songs that don't make it to the final cut. Or they have like demos and stuff. So bonus content to give your Patreons.
Yep.
I think that's a big part of the modern artist too. Is the ability to give your actual true fans a bit of extra stuff to chew on.
I watch a lot of YouTube, and I think you see that trend with the content creators and stuff on those. I mean, everyone's saying the same thing too. The algorithms change. Yep. The old creators aren't getting the same sorts of throughput and stuff. But like with all of that stuff, this is again, I'm an older man talking about this now. My world is different to the young artists that I'm working with, and they, I guess they need to sort this stuff out themselves too. Like every generation seems to have to, and it's not. And in a way, I would say don't listen to the old men telling you what to do or what it was like, because it's the worst thing. I mean, I had my dad's generation saying to me exactly the same things in slightly different ways, but I was precocious enough to think to myself, well, I'm going to do it my own way then, or whatever it was, and so I had to fight through that at the time too. And there's going to be a lot of naysayers throughout your life, especially when you do something like music. There's a lot of family members, there's lots of friends who have maybe what we want to call normal jobs, who are never going to understand what you're on about. Certainly there's no guarantees in any of it, but if you are passionate enough and thoughtful enough to come up with some sort of other ways of doing things, it's really important to try to do that. And don't try to follow some old model, because the label models are becoming quite antiquated now. It doesn't mean people aren't signing to labels, because it can be a good option for some people, if there's an option to do that. But you really just have to think about different ways of doing things. Like you're talking about the Patreon, or all sorts of ideas you can come up with. You're running a small business, you're not... which comes with all of the hurdles of running any sort of small business. And unfortunately, you have to wear many hats on like every single day.
Every hat, do your own graphics, run your own website.
Sure, exactly.
Run the socials.
And until you are bringing in a little bit of, if you can bring in some money, maybe you can start to delegate to someone at some point or get some help. But
it's good too, because then it feels like an honest picture or representation of the artist. Like if they're doing everything, they're doing the bio, they're curating the promo shots or artwork and stuff. Like it's going to really taste and feel like the artist. It's vision.
And there is a connectivity that people want to hear from artists that is super important. And I mean, the songs that I've worked on over the years that have gone somewhere, I mean, even the Vance Joy one, or like that, there is a connectivity there that people relate to. It's undeniable, whether you like the song or not. It's obvious that a lot of people seem to relate somehow to it, lyrically, emotionally, and that's a really important part of creativity, I think, which is authenticity. It's super important,
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Vance Joy. Tell me about that.
Sorry, that was a horrible name drop. I was just trying to think of some...
No, it was great. Because that song went absolute bonkers.
It's still going bananas. It's like it's just in the ether or something. I don't know. I don't understand how that works.
Did
to
it
be honest.
Feel like that at the time? Like, did you
go, you know what? I will tell you my poor clients. A lot of my Tassie clients have probably heard this story a million times, so I apologise. But I just like to get this straight, because there were some issues in the old days. A friend of mine, Rachel, who now manages James or Vance Joy, she was working at a place and running our tours and stuff with Megan and stuff, so I knew Rachel fairly well at the time. She had heard about someone from, I think she was at a cousin's wedding or something, and someone came to her and said, you're in the music industry, I've got this friend of mine or brother or whatever it was who, they had this song on SoundCloud at the time called Riptide that was hitting I don't remember what the numbers were, but it was sort of big for someone who just put it on themselves at the time. And they said, you know, would you maybe take a look and have a chat to him, see if you can give him some advice or, you know, see what the next thing is. And she checked it out and was like, oh, this is pretty interesting actually, that, you know, it's doing something that we're on its own, kind of without much promo or anything. And then she obviously had a meeting with James. I think she might have, you know, thought, and I think she was looking to start managing and stuff at the time anyway. Okay. So, and I assume that she, you know, asked to manage him or whatever. And then we had a meeting all together, and I met James and stuff. We had a chat, and she said, look, we've got this song Riptide. She was just a little bit concerned that maybe the mix wasn't quite where it could be, but she's also very sort of clear that, you know, to treat it with kid gloves, it had an essence to it that they didn't want to demolish or, you know, to gloss over. So we ended up booking in, I think, a week, but she also wanted to do an EP as well. So to have that song and another 4 songs, I can't remember what it was. So I came in, we got the multi-tracks from him. He'd recorded it himself with the drummer, Ed, as well. So they'd gone in and just done it themselves independently in a studio in Collingwood, I think it was. And then I got the multi-tracks and we did a bit of work on the song. I think we added a few little bits and pieces and I sort of just remixed it essentially.
You're right. So the bulk of it was already done.
The bulk of it was already done, yeah. I mean, they'd already created this monster, you know, already. So really I came in and just did some bits and pieces. Right. And I think put some keyboards on, maybe some more percussion. Yeah, just help the mix out a little bit, I think, just to give it a bit more fullness and stuff. It might have been a little bit bright at the time, but and then the rest of the week we recorded the rest of the songs. Cool. It was all very quick. I mean, probably 5 days all in, maybe. And then that just, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible to say that. I mean, we already knew that it was doing okay on SoundCloud, so it's sort of easy to say, but I certainly didn't think it was going to be some giant hit. But I thought when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is something about it is just very now. Yeah. And I guess I was a little bit aware of that stuff, I was always having to think about Triple J and what that meant. You know, it was just constantly in my head because everyone's expectation was just so Triple J focused for me. And I was often asked to maybe take, you know, beginner artists, or not beginner artists, I say not even young. I don't know what the word is, but, you know, like, I worked on a lot of artists' sort of initial sound development or something, you know, like I was often asked by labels, big and small, we've got this artist, we think they're great. They've got some great songs. Can you work them up?
It's a bit of development.
Development. I mean, it would have been their first EP I'd do with them. And then often sometimes they'd come back, or often maybe then they were often racing somewhere. They might go to the States, they might go to the UK, or they wanted someone else to do it. That's fine. But I still really enjoy doing those initial
there's some magic in there, isn't
there?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
The artists aren't bitter about the industry. They're excited.
They don't come with all of the baggage already.
And the songs, like typically an artist's first album has the best songs.
I reckon so. To be honest, I really do think so. Like there's something I often think about this, what that is and what it is about like younger people and how they write and stuff. Because there's no formula to it, and why we're all kind of fascinated, you know, since ancient Greece with youth. You know, the idea of youth, whether you're older or whatever, or it's that you have very intense emotional reactions to a lot of things. And I think you write about them in this really kind of aggressively honest way a lot of the time. And mostly it's about unrequited love at some point or something. It's just very interesting stuff. It's Romeo and Juliet. It's all sorts of things. It's passionate. It's like, it's instant. It's maybe not as overthought as someone who's in their 40s maybe. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a different way of thinking about the world a little bit. So I don't know, there is something fascinating. And I'm pleased I'm not saying that anyone who's not like 18 can't write a good song, because that's not true either. But in the world that I was in this Triple J, I mean, it was a youth market. It's a youth radio station, you know. So that was definitely a focus of that world and stuff. But but the Vance Joy thing was just, you know, I remember when it hit that Hottest 100 thing, which was a big thing at the time. You know, I don't know what I was doing, but I heard that it was in, and then I was like, oh, I couldn't believe that it did that. You know, it was wild. And again, I had a part to do with it, but you know, it was mostly James and Ed at that point too. So I like to make that clear, because I don't like taking too much credit for something that's not. You know what I mean?
No, it's cool. Absolutely.
But it was amazing. It's an amazing thing to be part of, I guess, in that way. Totally. Yeah. And actually, the other songs in that EP were fantastic too. So I mean, he's a really good songwriter.
Yeah, and it shows. It shows like people don't have hits like that without having depth or...
No, and his other songs are going great too. It's not like he just had one and then disappeared or something.
Yeah.
You know, he's been a very strong career out of all of that, and you know, done amazing things over the years. So.
And while I think about it too, I've heard a few people, probably more American music makers or producers, talking about production points.
Yep.
Is this something that you have much?
Yeah, I always
do with?
basically I have a basic contract with every artist that I work with, and that's it's usually 2 production points and 1 mix point if I mix, or if I don't, you know, whatever like that. So, yeah, look, it's a fairly standard thing for a lot of the industry. Whether that's just how we grew up, you know, that's our contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I've been intrigued because.
Yeah. Why would you do that? Yes.
No. Like you hear some people go, oh yeah, I'd rather just get paid and just get it done.
Yep.
And not have any points.
Yep.
Whereas you hear some people go, oh, I've got faith in this artist. How about I'll just get paid like $100 a day and then pay me in points.
That's a slightly different thing, I would say. That's more of like that's sort of not what this is, I guess. This is like I still get my payment out of this. Now, having said that, there's a sliding scale with payments and stuff. And I mean, I've been working with I try to be reasonable with artists. You know, I've been working with a lot of Tassie artists now, which is, I wasn't expecting that necessarily, but in the last, year or two, I've been doing lots of stuff with some younger crew and stuff. And it's excellent because I love seeing what's out there talent-wise.
Just being in your community.
Yes, exactly. It's amazing. I'll come back to that. But I think the points thing, look, it's been an industry standard. It's one of those things where I get paid a certain amount, and if anything crazy goes on in the future, then I get a little bit of a cut of that.
Yeah.
Now, that's mostly like post-recoup, like the artist has to repay the making of all of the music first before I would ever touch any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm just a bit, I just don't really know much about it. It's sort of a bit of one of those hazy kind of like, you don't really...
It's hazy because no, it's going to sound terrible. Not a lot of people reach the amount of money from making a record.
Yeah.
Albums are expensive.
Yes.
There's not many artists these days that can really recoup on an album if they've paid a little bit for it.
Yep.
It's quite difficult to recoup that money.
Oh, yeah.
So even then, and if you're earning $1,000 off Spotify a year plus that, then I would get, say, 1% of that or something.
Yeah. And who handles the, like,
this is the thing, right? So if you're an independent, I have a very basic contract that I get artists to sign, which is not just about points. It's just the agreement that you paid me the money, I supply you this and this.
Yep.
There's no arguments there, and then there's little details in there. It's like a one-pager. But really what happens is, if you're an independent artist and you've signed a contract with me, I mean, I don't think I've never received any points from any independent artist I've worked with, basically.
It's more label-based.
It's more label-based, and I could potentially maybe like audit someone or something like that, as if I'm ever going to do that. Like, it's not, it's most of the time then once the contract's going to, say, a label situation to the accounts there, that will then, you will just go into the books and then it's all automated then.
Okay.
So the artist each 6 months, like if you sign with APRA, you get your APRA checks in or whatever, checks, like transfers or whatever.
Yep.
So in the same way, I will just get a small amount coming through from an artist every 6 months, whether that's from a US label or an Australian label.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like songwriting royalties or whatever, which is a different thing too. But
it's a funny. And I guess a lot of the podcasts I listen to, people do mention it, and it's always been an intriguing part of the industry, because it's so much part of the industry that no one talks about, or no one really like scratches that surface because it's a bit too hard or
it's
difficult.
Hard. There's a wonderful friend of mine called Charlotte Abrams. She's my manager, like a sort of day-to-day manager. We have a sort of an agreement now where she helps me out with stuff and blah, blah, blah. She's incredible because she has, and we talk a lot, me and Charlotte have talked about this stuff a lot, and especially working with young artists and for up-and-comers or people who've never been in the studio and stuff before. It's a bit of a crazy world. And you're walking into this room with an old bearded man, as usual, and then and I'm saying all this, throwing all this stuff at you, and what does this all mean? Is this real? Am I being scammed? Is this crazy? What does it all mean? So Charlotte's been incredible, where she's been running consulting with artists for like an hour or two, and I suggest all of my new artists go to her. I'm not trying to upsell anyone, but it's really, really worth it, as she's just so honest and straight up, and will run you through all of that stuff that you need to know, because it's a bit of a minefield, but it doesn't have to be, and some people talk about it, some people don't. I mean, when I was doing a lot more label stuff, it was just all kind of part of that chat, I guess. It was all very expected. But then, I had to spend a lot on lawyers to get all these contracts sorted out too. There's a bit of argy-bargy through American stuff that I've done and had to pay a lot of money. But often it's worth fighting the fight at that point. But hopefully, if you set up these things to start with really early, then you're much better off, and you understand it clearly. You shouldn't have any issues down the path. I mean, another thing, this is a real aside, and we can come back around. I was just reminding me of something, because I've been talking to a lot of artists about when they first start up with bands. And I guess this is probably more artists that are looking to enter, I guess, the commercial or indie sphere, when you're playing with band members and friends and stuff, and how complicated all that stuff can get as well down the track. Because, I mean, I've seen it a million times now, and it always happens the same way. So if you are a younger artist and you're playing with friends, colleagues, whatever, it's really cool to get some sort of, it feels wrong at the start, but to get some sort of little agreement in place as to what all of it means. If someone's doing free gigs for you, it's great, but I would also encourage you to think about maybe paying them some money at some point. To clear up stuff, that's probably another topic we could talk about another time.
Absolutely. I think it's a great topic to talk about at some stage too, because every band member brings a certain amount to the table, and if they're not financially involved, why? They shouldn't be doing free gigs.
No, but it's another chicken or the egg scenario, and this is sort of comes back to I'll just swing it back around to the points for a second. I mean, in the way that the production points, I think what they're really supposed to do is they're sort of an acknowledgement of the creative input of the producer at that point, which you can either agree or disagree with. Absolutely, I'm not saying I didn't make up this idea, but. So I think it's just that it's sort of protection for the future. If you've put a lot of time and effort and work, and yes, you've agreed on a sum, but I think it's just saying, look, you're sort of part of this project creatively. This is if something goes crazy, we can all earn a little bit of cash off that at the end, But anyway, but swinging back around to the band thing, I mean, I'm only mentioning this because I think I find myself in a position more and more, I used to be the baby guy in all the bands, I was the young little bass player. Now suddenly I'm like the older guy. Doesn't mean I'm any smarter or wiser. It just means I've seen a few more things at times, or I've seen history repeat itself a little bit. So I'm more aware of some of those situations. And there's been really sticky situations that I think that with a little bit of knowledge now, I will always encourage people to try and sort stuff out earlier, even though it might be slightly uncomfortable to start with, or seem ridiculous when you go and meet every Saturday and play in the garage or play somewhere. Why would you be talking about contracts and stuff? But it's really actually cool to be able to sort it out. And I think you'll find actually everyone will respect the whole situation a bit more too.
And I think times are different. I think people are a bit more aware about just life in general and stuff like that, and just your role and what your expectations are and how much input or output you are expected within a group and stuff like that. So I think the industry definitely has changed for the better in a lot of that way, and people are looking at it differently and expecting different things in return. And I think that's a great idea.
It was an unknown world for all of us in the old days. I mean, we just did whatever we could. I mean, if I was doing, I'd go and do corporate gigs or whatever you call them, just paid gigs, whatever for the man. But then I would always go and be doing like $10 original gigs, what I'd call original gigs. So some songwriter that I love to play with, I just really wanted to play with him because I loved it, but I'm never going to make any money out of it. That was my decision to make, and I never expected anything else more out of that. But I think people get confused, there can be guitarists working in a band who contribute maybe a sort of a lead line somewhere in a song. That's not songwriting, actually. I mean, this is a very grey area. I mean, it's not. It's sort of black and white in a way. I mean, lyrics and music, it's sort of 50-50 of a song, 50% of a song. Some people can get confused if they sort of put a lick in the end of a song, whether that's songwriting or not. And it's not really songwriting, you know. It's like what I do every day is people bring me, let's say, chords and lyrics at a basic level, and then I might be coming up with hooks all through the song or whatever. But that's, again,
doesn't mean you've got song credits.
That's not songwriting credits,
exactly.
you know. So, but a lot of that stuff seems unclear, and so, you know, artists can get confused when you might have a dominant member of the band, you know, and that can get a bit confusing and stuff. So, it's worth seeking out. I mean, it all sounds horrible at the start, because the last thing you want to be doing is going, I need to go and get a lawyer or something, like in the first day of rehearsal or something. You don't have to go that far, but just having that in the back of your mind, doing a little bit of research, maybe seeking out some folks in the industry who you can chat to, because it's really worth being prepared, you know, for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's such a whole new world these days, really, in terms of how music's, or especially for someone my age, your age, our age. It's just a whole new beast. So definitely. There's some great probably advice from people from APRA or
absolutely. They can give you people, totally. And look, there's a lot of it's like with everything. There's people out there who maybe are looking to take advantage or just don't sign anything ever. Basically, at this point, there's no need for you to sign anything until you have got absolute, you know, so deep in the weeds. I think just don't, you know. I mean, a record label is a bank, you know, for you. If you want to talk about what an actual label is and what a there's a lot of things that they can bring to the table. I think now it's very confusing because of the social media landscape and the power of, say, the Gen Z crew, who can all run their own marketing campaigns, I reckon, essentially, and probably more authentically, really, than a label can. But they can give you some money up front and help you out. But you've really got to think about what that means, you know, in the future. We certainly don't have time to go through all that, but just be really aware. Do as much research, so you speak to as many different people as you can, and realise that doing it yourself is going to be hard work, but you will certainly be in a lot better position in a lot of ways, you know, to start with.
And it makes you aware of all the elements that, you know, go into putting a song onto a platform or onto radio or onto an ad.
And that stuff does cost money too. Like this comes around to but there are PR people you can pay to do that too. There's basically by doing it yourself. Now, this is also not saying labels aren't evil. Like they are a business, right? But they've put out some incredible stuff, helped a lot of artists I know too. It's not as simple as that. There's lots of different situations where artists become very upset with a label, and I can understand that. Sometimes there just comes a point in a business relationship where it becomes stale, and an artist wants to move on, and their dreams and hopes don't align with what the label feels like too. And that's when you can start to have discussions and leave the label and that sort of stuff. The same with management. People can change and move along, you know. But I think it's as an independent artist, though, you can basically take, you know, the label is a collection of different talented people all working together to put out a song, right? So you've got like PR department, you know, or marketing, PR, whatever. You've got A&R, which is artist development, helping you out with the songs, maybe encouraging you to, you know, change some songs around, or maybe because if they're going to put money behind something, they want to know that the song has the best chance. So they're going to encourage you to keep writing, maybe co-write with people, which may be something you're not into as well, but that's up to you.
They can probably facilitate
co-writing with other artists and other songwriters who are particularly maybe really good in a genre. So there's a whole thing that you sign up to when you do that, you know. It's not just like the first song you take to them. Well, they might love that one, but they may not love the second one. And they might get you to write another 10 songs before they'll want you to release a song. So that's all part of this system that you get into with the label. But you can also yourself, I mean, obviously this is all with access to money, but you have to do this as you can, like you would save up for anything, you know. You can then maybe get a PR person involved at some point and pay them yourself. By campaign. If you want to release a song, get someone in to help you, because you can just go and release a song yourself and put it through TikTok or Instagram or whatever you're on. But that's a difficult reach, you know. I mean, who's going to come? You, and also in your hometown, you might be able to put on a great gig somewhere, you know, and that's great. And if you want to do that, that's absolutely what you should be doing too. But if you want to spread your wings further, you are probably going to need some help outside of that, you know. So you can break down the parts that the label do, and if you're able to pay for any of that stuff at some point or in bits and bobs, there's ways of accessing that as well.
I think and there's so many people. Like I know that Taylor Swift re-recorded a lot of her songs because she now owns the the rights to her big hits. She didn't own them at the time, whereas I think now she does. She can re-release.
She
the
owns
songs.
those masters.
I think Pete Murray's done a similar thing at the moment. Re-recorded and then he's encouraging his fans
to go and
to listen to
access
the new
those
versions.
ones. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
stuff
totally.
like that. So there's definitely some shady contracts, but there's some great facilities or some great ways to get.
Yeah, and I'm certainly I don't want to be the old guy on the hill kind of thing. It's just you got to manage your expectations. You know, it's if you sign a deal with someone, they want something out of that as well, and they want to have some sort of control. And depending on how much you decide upon, that sort of stuff. I mean, a publishing deal can be a fantastic way of accessing funds through a company, and yet still maintain control over songwriting and stuff like that. So if that's something, publishing is an interesting world. Again, do your research, but a publishing house or publishing company can be really helpful in letting you access some funds up front.
Right.
Whereas, and you sort of pay that back through your songwriting over the period and stuff like that.
That's some great
going for grants
there,
as well. There's always the grants. I mean,
Absolutely.
there are so many interesting different grants around from each state, wherever you are. They're accessible. Now, of course, it's a bit of a gamble. There's no guarantee you're going to get it, but you've got to put this work in to do all this stuff, No such thing as a free lunch, unfortunately.
No, you can't just, unfortunately, just get up on stage and sing your song. You need to do a lot of other
well, you know what? You
back
can
ends.
do that. Actually, this is going to tie into something I just wanted to mention, if that's okay. Another thing I've been talking to some of my younger clients with is the idea that the career of music that I'm quite lucky where I've sort of been able to have an essential career out of what I've done, right? That's pretty rare for me not to be like doing teaching as a sideline or some other sort of like side hustle to do with music, which is, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just don't have any teaching degree anyway. So, but in general, if you're an artist, a songwriter, I feel like people, if you're looking at social media stuff, the idea that all these artists, whether they're small local artists or whatever, who in your world seem to be doing quite well, just you don't need to, like, they're not making a career out of what they're doing in front of you. It may look like that, but they're not. And that's not to take away from what they're doing at all. And there are a few at the top of the game in every industry. Of course, there always is. There's some artists that are pulling in probably enough money to, let's call it a career. In general, even with radio play, with some good success on Spotify, that's not enough to sustain you usually. So the idea that it's somehow you're a failure if you have a job outside of the musical sphere, which it's a real fear though. I mean, it's a real thing, and I feel terrible for people because I don't think that they understand that that's a very normal position. Every single muso I knew growing up the entire time, all were doing hospo, all were teaching. I was doing a million different things as much as I could. I was going out doing front of house. I was doing horrific corporate jobs at the casino, dressed in like these bananas outfits and all sorts of shit. Horrible. I hated it. Doesn't matter. But and I'm not saying you have to put up with that, because then the friends that I knew who actually got a bit sort of jack of it and were like, you know what, I love music, but doing these gigs all the time is killing me. So I'm going to go and find a job, which takes 8 hours a day out of my brain space, allows me an income, and then I can come back to the music that I loved so much and do it in a certain way. It's not a crime to be calling music a passion and a hobby at the same time, like it doesn't mean you still can't make money from it. It doesn't mean you still can't rise the ranks of, if your stuff's good enough. But
100%.
I think it's just really important to not give yourself grief, because
it's definitely not a cop-out. Like I think it's important to have diversity in
abilities,
to diversify and to have different. Like if you just hang out with musos, you're like it's nice to actually have people with normal, quote, normal
civilians.
jobs, civilians, who have different aspects on life, and it's quite easy to get caught up in your own in your own motion or in your own people.
Yeah, and the whole industry, or whatever little industry the thing you're sitting in. I mean, sitting with my partner now who has a very different job to me, and going out and hanging with some of the crew that she hangs out with, it's just a great different headspace because I'm so used to hanging out with musicians. There are a lot of people doing very interesting, very cool stuff out there too.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's important. I think it's really good to diversify and to and make you love music more. Because if you're doing music all day, every day. I
didn't want to ever play bass. Like I hated. It took me so long to even want to pick up a bass after doing that many gigs like that. Like it killed my interest level completely.
I was teaching a lot as well. Probably like probably not a lot, but I was doing like 3 solid days.
That's
a
enough.
week.
That's way enough.
And it just killed my interest. My love for music had just deteriorated. I couldn't wait to get home and be in silence.
They say don't monetize your hobbies or whatever. But it's you look at that. I mean, it's easy for me to sit back and say that. I guess. I mean, I've been okay, but it doesn't mean I've been destitute millions of times. Like I'll be first to say that it's not easy. It's not. No. It's not some meteoric rise of like whatever. So I don't know. I think that's really important. The other thing I was going to mention too is I was just thinking of stuff that I talk to people I work with is that also if you're a singer-songwriter or any musician, I think the most powerful thing I think you can do for yourself too is to make sure you've got some sort of little recording rig to do stuff yourself. The more you understand, the more power. You don't have to go on YouTube for like 6 months of your life to investigate every part about engineering, but have some ideas about it. The more control, the more knowledge you have is the more power you have about in the whole situation. So whatever computer, laptop, iPad, doesn't matter. There's a million different basic levels. GarageBand is perfect if you're on Mac systems. There's other free stuff, Reaper workstations and stuff. Start playing around with that because before you come into the studio, it's fantastic for you to have a little bit of knowledge. Maybe you've tried putting some drum loops on stuff. Maybe you've tried some bass. I mean, just to experiment, because when you're sitting with your guitar by yourself, it's all very well, and that's a great way of a lot of people are writing songs like that. But also to then just try to take it to the next level, muck around, play around, start to understand what a lot of the stuff does.
I think understand about parts
it'll break the mystery down a little bit.
Like different frequencies. Like maybe I need a mandolin part. Maybe I need a lower. Like just thinking about harmony and the way that everything stacks together instead of just going like 4 guitar parts with the same capo and the same tuning and the same chords.
It also maybe allows you to create some dynamics too, because naturally as a songwriter player, if you're doing gigs, you're not creating as much. Well, some of them, maybe the newer songwriters aren't just naturally creating some space and dynamics in their songs, which is what we work a lot on in the studio. Basically if someone presents a song to me, we'll go through it and then I'll try to find points where we can create a little bit of color and light and shade and stuff and all that sort of thing. So I just think it's really important, give yourself as much knowledge as you can.
And it's pretty accessible. Like you can buy an interface for not much. You can buy I guess one beef I have with cheap mics is people will go and buy a Rode NT1 or NT whatever, and they've got a really poorly treated room, and a condenser's just going to pick up
that is hard. I've definitely made those, especially during COVID. I was trying to get people to go into the wardrobes and all sorts of stuff. But I would say just get a hand. I mean, some sort of, a 58 or something. I mean, they're probably just they're fine for that sort of thing.
I agree. I think a good dynamic.
Absolutely.
It's a great start.
Totally. And you can also, you can just chuck it in your bag. Like if you go on holidays and you want to do some stuff while you're away. I don't know, there's just a lot of options like that. I would say just really encourage people to try all that stuff out too. Don't be scared by it and don't be off put, because also, like I say to my mum when I'm trying to do tech help, you're not going to break anything, like you might make some terrible songs to start with, but that no one else has to hear them at the start. That's how I did it.
And that's how you discover cool stuff too.
Yeah, exactly.
You make a few sonic so-called mistakes. It's like, that was pretty bloody cool.
I got so look, and also some people are absolutely not interested in the recording side of it, and I totally get that too. To me, it's a real nerdy passion that I've had for a long time. But even if you're not, I think it's just a very good exercise to go through. And then you get to hear yourself back in a different way than you do when you're actually playing the guitar with yourself. When you step back, bounce down a little mix, put in the car, it gives you a totally different perspective of how the song flows. There's a whole lot of things like that can help.
I think that's super important. It's some great stuff there today, man. You've really opened up and shared us some good little life hacks.
Good.
Thanks a bunch.
Okay.
And how about if people want to get in touch and start working with you, building up some of their own tracks and stuff like that? Are you working remotely with independent artists, or is it?
Absolutely. I'll do all sorts of stuff. I'm doing mixes from all over the world sometimes, and absolutely doing that and remotely as well. Totally.
Cool.
So
your
you can
website's a good spot to go.
Yeah, go to the website, which is just johncastle.com.au. JOHNCASTLE.com.au.
Yeah. Cool, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming and checking out the space and stuff. It's been great.
It's been really nice to check out the tools of the trade. Everyone's got their own take on gear and things.
And that's another thing. The greatest advice I've ever heard is don't take anyone's advice.
Let's finish on that.
Yeah,
thanks, man.
Fantastic.
Cheers, John.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Say It With Guitars. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share it around to your mates, leave a good review, and hopefully we'll see you next time.